The 2021 Noble CrossFit semifinals. Noble gets that. They've replaced Reebok. They're another shoe company.
That's right.
Those are the guys I think I heard they liked the name Noble, but they didn't have a product, but they just wanted to make something. Did you hear that story?
No.
I heard their founder's story is that they didn't know what they wanted to make, but they thought Noble was a great name, and then afterwards they came up with the shoe idea. I think they're ex Reebok guys. Someone can fact check that if they'd like. Um, but I'm on
Not
the
my
website.
area. Not my area of expertise, but it's interesting.
I hope you know a lot, and if you do know a lot about the semifinals, I'm very curious where you got it from because I'm on the website, and it's a very narrow portal for information, from what I can see about the CrossFit semifinals. When you click on information and you click on any of the cities, you get no information. You just see Adrian Bosman with no shirt on saying no rep. It's like their cute way of doing a 404 page, which I approve of. And then I click on the tickets, which is the only other link that they have, and it's a write up of the week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the semifinals, Brian?
They're the
Does
last.
the winner of this go to the CrossFit Games?
It's the last stop. Both individuals and team athletes. There's no masters or teenage divisions at these that will qualify to the games. The competitions can have some, but no game spots. And the number of games qualifiers varies based on continent.
So let me hold you up there a second. So when you're saying masters and teens could compete in the semifinals, but it won't take them to the games as masters or teens.
It's not semifinals for them. All of these competitions are people who've been running events for years. A lot of them have been doing it for 8 to 10 years, and they usually have community event, for teams, local teams, or
You froze. You froze. I cannot hear you. I can see you as a screenshot. There you go. You're back.
what's the last thing you heard?
Something about these events were have been run for 8 to 10 years, and I think I was confusing. You were saying teens, and I thought you were saying teams.
Yeah, that's always confusing. Yeah, so the teams like Rich Froning's team, they're competing this upcoming weekend. They have a chance to games. Teenagers and masters at some of these events there will be age group divisions, like for example at the Taurean Pro, but those are just like local competitions. It's not with anything regarding the CrossFit Games season.
Okay. So the winners of these events, and some places down 1 through 5 or whatever you're going to tell us, is for it's shit or get off the pot for the individuals and the teams. This is an important week. Has anyone qualified for the games yet?
Nope, no individuals or teams.
Damn, you froze again. I wonder what's going on. Are you in a bad spot?
Same spot as always.
Yeah, it's really weird. Okay, I'm gonna say that it did catch the audio on that. Okay, so no one's qualified for the games. Uh, how about teens and masters? Have they qualified for the games already?
Yes, the age group island qualifier is finished, and is my understanding that the finalization of the roster spots will happen.
Okay, and so when you say age group qualifiers, that includes teens and masters.
Correct.
Alrighty. So tell me about this. How come I can't get any information on the website when I click on those events? Do you have any information on these events?
I do have some information on these events, but this is opinion is that CrossFit's they may not be behind in terms of planning and organizing, but it feels trying to find out what's happening because they've been late to the game in terms of communicating certain things relative to what I would expect of an organization.
Okay. And late based on what criteria? What would make it late?
Not giving athletes a realistic time frame to make, not just from a training perspective, but also a travel and logistics perspective to get to some of these events. And it's even more teams. There's one gym, Coda CrossFit, I think, is sending 4 or 5 different teams to 3 or 4 different sanctioned events, and there's one guy, like the owner of their gym, who's responsible for all these teams, and he had 2 weeks. He found out where his teams were going to be, and then he had to have them there somehow ready to compete.
Are these people frustrated?
I think there is a decent amount of frustration for some people with regards to that, and it's at every level. Fans, it's the athletes, and it's the organizers. I really potential like this, but it needs to be a little bit smoother in the way that it's carried out.
Is this because of the shit show that our planet's in right now? The COVID response? Is that can the games blame it on that?
Definitely can. That may not be the only factor, but it is 100% a factor. It's very difficult permitting and what's not. The Mid Atlantic CrossFit Challenge is the first North American semifinals going on this, and they announced a policy for COVID that was going to be implemented based on, there's several layers of decision. Are you in, and what are their regulations? What county are you in? What are their regulations? What's the arena's regulations? And then your event directors can have a say on top, potentially. So they announced one thing, and then a few days later, the rules changed wherever they're hosting their event, their COVID protocols, and that's probably going to continue to happen for the other North American events. They actually haven't announced protocols for those because things are changing so quickly right now.
Are the athletes going to be wearing masks when they compete?
No, and I think that the mask situation, my understanding is, it probably is for a majority of the people there.
I can't wait till I see some athletes wearing masks.
If any of the athletes are wearing masks to compete, some of them might wear masks out onto the competition floor potentially, but I think them on.
Any more surprised than the shit show we're in? Worldwide, you should not be surprised by anything, Mr.
That's fair.
Brian Friend. Uh, Originally, you had told me that I thought that you had said that there were going to be 2 virtual events and they were going to both be on the same weekend. Now I'm seeing, as I scroll through the calendar here, there are 5 virtual events on 2 different weekends. Damn, you froze again. I'm going to blame Riverside FM for this recording. Riverside FM.
5 of the 10 semifinals are virtual, and there's a lot of people are talking about with regards to that. It's not optimal, but again, not much CrossFit could do here. They could have potentially chosen to have locations that some of the athletes might have not been able to travel based on whatever their country's restrictions are. So that's hopefully happen, because I think that it's important to have at least one live competition in the season before the games. It's very different than competing out. But there's another big question that's going on, and I think that this year is actually going to be a good. Should the semifinals have uniform programming or not? And lots of people have been talking about this, and the general to be that the semifinals should have uniform programming. And the reason being, and you're probably really familiar with this, is that the season is not just the game. It's not just
Another freezing. It's not just the
finals.
open. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So if there's one entity that's programmed the open, and then the quarterfinals, and then the semifinals, and then the games, you can look at the programming from the previous events, and you can say, oh, we've already tested wall walks in the open, so why are we going to program wall walks here in the semifinals now? People have already proven their capacity with that. Let's up the skill. And we have clear examples of this from years past, where Dave has done a handstand walk in the open. In the regionals, there were some steps and ramps to go over, and in the games, they had the combination of all these things plus evolution of the programming for the season as the field narrows down. This year, I think the virtual events will all, half the field will take the same test to get to the games. But the other 5 competitions are all going to be competition or event directors or their group of people. All of those guys are very qualified to program high-level tests for competitive or elite athletes in our sport. They've been doing it for years and have good programming. I've seen some of the programming. Some of it's been, but we're not talking about just making good tests. We're talking about what's the point of this stage, and does the programming fit in with the rest of the stages before and after it?
I fully get your point. Have they given any explanation why they're allowing the individual events to do their own programming?
I don't think so. I think, my assumption is in the sanctional season, it was one of the appeals of having you could have certain events that feature but I think that the main focus has to be on, are we getting the athletes that we want to the next stage of the competition, and have they proven a similar capacity along the way? I mean, it's already there's 2 events coming up this weekend. One of them has 6 workouts, the other has 7 workouts. That's a very obvious to begin with, but we could go into much more detail about the problems here.
Let me ask you this. So, if they were all the same, and that would mean that weeks 2, 3, and 4, and weeks 2, 3, and 4 would have an advantage in their numbers. What would that mean? Advantage? Obviously, they wouldn't knock the people out from week 1 to go in because you're only competing against the people in your semifinal region. But would it affect the placement and the ranking when they showed up at the games?
Not necessarily. The one is often done to address that problem is have like a mass start event as the first event of the weekend. So, run, swim at the same time after one workout. Now you have a ranking, and for the next event that needs to be seeded or whatever, you can seed them that way. I think it's the best interest of the sport to have multiple weeks of competition at this stage. From covering the regionals, it's very exciting. Close races. There's definitely a lot of good athletes and capable athletes that just miss making the games. And if you have them all on one weekend, stories get lost. And that's just more athletes who are working hard all year that don't get the recognition they deserve, which I think is the opposite of what the sport needs. So I think it's okay, but there's definitely some drawbacks. I mean, having the workouts early can be advantageous, but everyone in your region or continent or semifinal has that same advantage. I think that the bigger advantage is the people who go if I get more time to prep for the games.
The first semifinal, as you mentioned, is this weekend, May 28th to the 30th, and the last one is June 18th to the 20th. When are the CrossFit Games?
The week of July 27th or something, whatever the Monday is there.
So 5 weeks after the 4th week is complete.
Yes, but 2 weeks after the 4th week is complete is the last chance qualifier, where the final and women will have an opportunity to qualify for the games.
So you're telling me, do 5? Let's talk about that last chance qualifier for a second. How do they get the people for that? Where do those people come from?
So, for example, this weekend there's the Taurean CrossFit Challenge. In the Taurean Pro, okay, you got to think a little bit here.
I got a pen. I got a pen and paper.
The Oceanic region or continent qualifies 3 men and 3 women straight to the games. The next 3 places, so 4, 5, and 6, go to the last chance qualifier. However, on the women's side, they get a 4th spot at the last chance qualifier because there's a woman competing in Oceania who should be competing in Africa, but she can't because of travel restrictions. So
Awesome. Okay, and when you say Oceanic, which one are you talking about? The Mid-Atlantic or the Taurean Pro? Oh,
Taurean Pro.
Okay.
Now, the same thing is true in the Taurean Pro, at the Mid-Atlantic, because Tia Claire Toomey and actually one other female in the field I'm on the men's side here, sorry. They're all competing at the Mid-Atlantic. The other woman is Carla Henriette, but they should be competing at other competitions that they qualified for, but they can't travel there. So, it's pretty obvious that Tia is going to take a game spot, and then the other women who would have taken the game spot, or 2 through 5, will still go. The person who is sixth in that region is really the one who's going to get kind of screwed by the fact that Tia is there because fire instead of getting should have got. But in Oceania, the is probably not going to affect any of the top 10 spots. So they have the same rule. They'll get an extra person, but it's actually irrelevant because it's not.
Brian,
Yep.
sorry for the choppy connection. I don't know what's going on. When you say they can't travel to their region, why is that? That's a lot of people with that excuse. Do you know what the parameters were of being able to get that exemption?
I think they had to communicate to CrossFit, hey, this is where I live. This is where I'm required to compete based. These are the travel restrictions that are in place for that region that make it, either where I'm coming from or where I'm going to, that make it very difficult logistically, or it may be impossible, or I have to quarantine for 2 weeks when I get there, and that's going to be, 2 weeks of air. That's a ton of money. It's a limited amount of time to make these arrangements, like we talked about earlier. To CrossFit, and then CrossFit said, oh, yeah, you're right, based on the global situation problem. So we're going to place you somewhere else.
So there's not any official guidelines of what could get you that exemption on the website. I can't read about it and it say, hey, if your country has more than a 14-day lockdown. I mean, like Australia is basically one giant jail cell right now. I think those people have to. I was reading about tennis pros. I mean, it sounds like a complete nightmare, the quarantine status of coming in and out of some of these countries.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's one of the countries in terms of government control to begin with prior to all of this, so that's not very surprising.
Right. Okay, so I know we want to talk about this first week, but I want to continue a little bit about the last chance qualifier. So if there's, let's just say for ease of math, there's 3 people from each region who will be at the last chance qualifier at each semifinal. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it'll be somewhere between 30 and 40 women and 30 and 40 men will compete in the last chance qualifier. And what week does that happen?
July 4th weekend.
July 4th. And is that virtual?
It is.
And will CrossFit be streaming that somewhere? Is there anywhere? How do you show a virtual event? Will we be seeing that?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question for semifinals too that are virtual. Understanding is the 3 North American semifinals will have games quality or regional quality coverage at Granite Games and West Coast Classic. Also will be true for the Taurean Pro in Australia, same people that you're used to seeing out there. It in Cape Town is the other live event, and I don't think that they're going to have a live broadcast of that. Been no communication from CrossFit about what the coverage for the virtual events will look like, but my assumption and will be something similar to what we had for stage 1 of the games, and that will also be true for the last chance qualifier. And what that basically means is the competition will be structured as if it was taking place over 3 days, so they'll have a fixed amount of time to do certain workouts. CrossFit is gathering their videos and the data as that's coming in. When the time is up, for doing those work, leaderboard, and they'll kind of congregate a few of those of the best performances and show like of the workout with a couple guys talking through it as it's happening.
Man, CrossFit's going to be really overwhelmed. HQ is going to be overwhelmed week 3 and 4. I mean, week 3 with 3 virtual events, that's a lot of videos coming in. For anyone who's listening to this, we keep getting a drop. So if you're hearing some interruptions, it's not us, or some weird silences, it's not us. I mean, it is us, but it's not us. We're not weirdos and we don't just stop talking. It's because our feed keeps dropping and we can't see each other or hear each other for a minute. So if you had to watch only one of these this weekend, May 28th, North America versus the Mid Atlantic CrossFit semifinal or the Taurean Pro, which one would you watch?
It's got to be the Mid Atlantic, and it's look, the Pacific Regional is always entertaining. Team's not there. Jamie Simmons is not there, so the women's field is missing two of the big three. It's still going to be very super competitive. There's probably 8 guys that can realistically take those top 3 spots, and there may be 1 or 2 I don't even know about. There's always an up and coming guy, but the Mid Atlantic is stacked. Look at the men in the field there. You have the second quant. You got Justin Medeiros, phenom rookie from last year. You got Scott Panchik and Ben Smith, two of the most legendary. Travis Mayer, who just won the quarterfinals. I mean, those 5 guys alone are going to draw a bigger crowd than pretty much any semifinal competition. And in the meantime, on the women's side, Tia has been added to the field that already most popular American athletes in the world: Haley Adams, Amanda Barnhart, and Brooke Wells.
Wow. Wow.
All-star lineup, and this is something that I've been kind of studying. That CrossFit, how did they seed these athletes? They said that they went through this process and it was going to be fair and equitable, but I'm looking at that. If you take Tia out of the mix, if you have Haley Adams, Amanda, and then if you go to the next weekend, the Granite Games, the top 3 athletes there in terms of notoriety are Christy Aramo, Stephanie Chung. It just doesn't stack up. That's not going to sell as many tickets as Haley Adams, Amanda Barn. But if
So
you do
they should have moved one. You're saying they should have moved one of those girls in the Mid Atlantic region to the Granite Games.
Maybe it's complicated because they said, first of all, if you place top 10, you want to go. So if and then if you live in the state that it's going there. So Amanda Barnett and Brooke Wells, I think they chose that place that they wanted to go there. Yeah, Amanda was first in the quarterfinals. Brooke Wells was 5th. Fee Sagafi was 6th. So those 3 women they got placed there. Haley Adams lives in Tennessee. The competition's in Tennessee, so she got placed there. Have a chance to go to Granite Games because they either chose or lived in their state, which were the first 2 criteria CrossFit used. After that, they had to seed the rest of the athletes. And when you do the math and add up their seedings based on their quarterfinal, it's pretty easy. I would argue that the quarterfinal seeding is very arbitrary relative to a lot of other metrics that you could have used. There's some place in the mid-40s in the quarterfinals that I've never heard of before. And you know how many of these athletes I'm familiar with. In the 2-3 spaces away from them that are 3-time games athletes. So are you going to put the 3 times games athletes with the never been to the games, never been to a sanctional, never been to a semifinal, no one's ever seen her in a live competition, and say, yep, because they placed 1 spot away in the quarterfinals, 5 tests over one weekend.
Are they using that word equitable, or is that your word? Oh, damn, you dropped. I want to hear the answer to this question. Is that your word, fair and equitable, or is that your word, fair and equitable, or is that CrossFit's
wow.
word?
I don't know what to do with that.
With that question? Hello? I threw you a curveball? Cops are banging at your door. Hello? Brian? Are you there? Can you hear me? I can see you. You're good. You look good. Hello, Brian? Brian?
I have no idea.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? I'm going to call you on my phone. I can hear you. I can see you. I'll text him right now. I can hear you and see you.
You can still hear me? What? I can't see you, and it says due to a network error.
Damn. I wonder what's going. Yeah, I can see you and hear you. Let's hang up
Or see you.
and I'll and log back on. And log back on. Sorry, guys. Brian's checking out for a second, and he will be back. This, in all fairness, Riverside's been pretty good. This is the first big hiccup I've seen um, since we started using this. He's asking me same link or new link. I'll click same. Let's see if he comes back. Copy link. And he's not back yet. And he is back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I switched to a hotspot, so let's see what if it was me.
You mean like using your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Are those your words, fair and equitable, or are those CrossFit's words?
Those are their words. That's how they have it written in the rule book.
That should just tell you right there that it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, I mean,
It would have been better if it would have been better if
I
they
think
would have put athletes in the regions based on Instagram followers than using the word equitable. That's doesn't even. I don't even think they know what that word means. But
I mean, I think it's. I just hope that next year they learn from this year and that they say early in the season this is how the athletes will be seeded, so that that's known and accounted for before the open happens. There's no room for questions. There's no uncertainty, and we just chalk this one up as a loss and get it better next time.
Yeah, equitable by definition is fair and impartial. So if it's fair and equitable, it's fair and fair. Or they should have said fair and impartial. But we need a metric. We need to know. I mean, if it's a sport, we need to know. Are you putting these people in there by their height, by their performance, by their like? We need something a little bit better than that. And I think that's what the fans want. I think that, and that's what draws.
What's one of the biggest complaints that people have always had is I can't tune into this sport if I know what's happening. And that's a problem. Like if you turn on a golf tournament, within 5 minutes of watching the tournament, you'll know exactly what the leaderboard is. The lead, who's contending, and whatever. Same thing with the basketball game, hockey game, NASCAR race, you name it. In CrossFit, if you turn it on, it's always been a question. If I haven't seen the first event I'm watching of the weekend, am I able to turn it on and within a couple of minutes understand what's happening here?
And it's a shame too because it's eminently watchable. I mean, it is. Once you're bought in, you're hooked. Once you're bought in.
Yeah, but imagine that you're that person who turns. You see these amazing athletes and incredible bodies doing this stuff that you can't, you don't understand how they're doing it. So you start asking questions. Oh, wow, how'd they get here? What did they have to do to get here? Oh, they all had to do different things to get here. Well, were they seeded based on that? It's really unknown. The organizing body never told us. No, you just.
Right. I didn't hear you mention Noah Olson's name. Did I hear you mention Noah's name? I'm assuming Noah's in the Mid Atlantic. You said okay, so maybe you did. You said Noah, Justin Medeiros, Ben Smith, Samuel Quant.
No. Noah's not in this one. He will be competing at the West Coast Classic in the last weekend, June 18th.
Oh, that doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't he live out there?
So he was, he got to choose where he wanted to go. Chose to go to West Coast. So one of the things is some of these guys train together. So Travis Mayer and Noah Olson may have talked to each other and said, hey, we don't want to go to the same semifinal. You declare this one. I'm going to go for this one. But the one I'm putting first last so that we have the best chance of not being in the same region. That's what I thought would have happened. But then you go look at the West Coast Classic for the women, and you have Carrie Pierce, Danielle Brandon, and Bethany Shadburn, who are all competing there, all of whom trained together in Vegas. Well, I guess that's why they're there, because the competition's in Vegas, so they had no choice. Well, could have had a choice.
Is Danielle Brandon a legitimate contender? I mean, I know her star is rising, and I know she's quite popular. Her social media is quite popular, and she's strutting her shit. Is she that good? I mean, I guess
she beat both of those girls in the in the quarterfinals. She placed 8th, and she's the only one of them who actually could have had her somewhere else because she was in the top
So
10.
she's
So
not
wherever
just
she said she's
she's
legit.
not just
Like
all
if you,
show. She's not just all show. She's show and go. She's a Ferrari with a good paint job.
yeah, I mean, I think she technically she placed 10th in 2019. She didn't make the top 10, but one of the girls who did popped for drug tests, so she got slotted to 10th. And the question is, can she get back to 10th place in a full games test in the top 10? I think she's got top 10 potential. I would be really surprised if she got into top 5.
She was on the demo team last year. Does that give anyone of the athletes you think insight, experience? Is there any advantage to being on the demo team and then going to the games?
Oh, I think that you definitely get some insights. You definitely learn a lot about the way that Dave runs things and does things, and I suppose that could potentially be beneficial. But I mean, ultimately, like you know how it is. You have to be able to perform when it comes down. She can. So
So do you have picks for these this week 1, May 28th through the 30th? Do you know what the workouts are already?
yeah. All the workouts for both competitions have been released, and it's my understanding that all of the workouts for all of the competitions will be released at least 1 week before they happen.
So you've looked at the workouts, and have you had time to look at the workouts and then look at the athletes and figure out who you think is going to be the top? I guess it's 8 or 9, because we're not only curious who's going to go directly to the games, but we're interested in who's going to go to the last chance qualifier. Well, before you say that, why is there a last chance qualifier?
I think the idea behind the last chance qualifier, dates back to the Central East men's field, where there's just occasionally a congregation of athletes that for whatever reason is. We can take the Oceanic women, for example. They only get 3 spots to the games because of their open participation. But based on their competitive performance in the last 3 years, they should earn 5 spots. The women should earn 5 spots to the games. They've done that.
What do you mean based on their what do you mean based on their competitive performance?
So I did a statistical breakdown a couple months ago when the first iteration of the rule, how many athletes from each region were going, and I was like, that something's not right here, because the European women are way better than the European men at the top level of the sport, but they're both getting 10 spots. And they say they're getting 10 spots because of their participation in the Open as a continent. And I was saying, okay, that's fine as a use, but ultimately I want to see the best 40 athletes at the games. I don't want to see 5 people in the first heat that are 3, 4, 5 minutes behind on every workout. I want to see the best 40 there. We're trying to find the fittest, test them against the fittest. So I did a metric based on performance, and I found out that in the last 3 years, there were 4, 5, and 6 women who were good enough to be at the games in those seasons, in the top 40. It was a little bit difficult to do, and maybe not an exact study, because each of the last 3 game seasons was different. There were only 30 at the games last year, for example, so there's a little bit of gray, but and if Tia and Jamie were competing there, you'd have Tia Claire Toomey, Cara Saunders, and Jamie Simmons, and they would take the top 3 spots, and no other women would have a chance. But you have Maddie Sturt, who's been to the games 4 straight years before 2020, and she actually placed like in the middle of the pack. She's good enough to be at the games, but she wouldn't have stood a chance against them. Now she will have a chance this time because Tia and Jamie aren't there.
So it's a catch-all. It's basically a confirmation that, hey, it's difficult to make the format perfect, and so this is sort of like, it makes sense. I like it.
Right.
I didn't like it. I don't like the thought of it, but then when I heard you explain it, I do like the thought of it.
It's, like you said, 30 to 35 women will be competing, and only 2 of them will get to go to the game. So you have to be very good to finish in the top 2 of who've already beaten 2/3 of the field or more at the competition preceding that.
So the winners of all of these will all go to the games, no ifs, ands, or buts, unless there's travel problems. And then the last chance qualifier, how many people did you say? Two women and 2 men from the last chance qualifier will go.
Yes, and
So it
that will
really
those
is
will
the
be the
last chance.
39th and 40th qualifiers. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm still awake, and I think I understand. I think I understand the format. I did not understand it last year. I think I do, but I didn't have you explaining it to me last year, and so I think I get it. Thank you. Um, will you watch both North America and Oceania? Will you watch both Taurean Pro and the Mid Atlantic CrossFit this week?
Yeah, I might not watch every heat of every workout, but I'll watch what I need to watch to know what's going on.
And are you working any of these events?
I'm not working either of I'm not working either of these. I'm covering the Taurean Pro for the morning chalk up. Just watching Mid Atlantic as a fan, basically.
What exactly are you covering about the Taurean Pro?
Uh,
Anything specific?
Recaps, emerging storylines, it's just stuff like that. That was the one they assigned to me.
So you'd rather watch the Mid Atlantic as we discussed earlier, but your project is the Taurean Pro, so you'll be glued to that.
No, no, I personally would rather watch both of them. I'm very interested in the especially the men's field in Australia.
Okay, so let's get to it. Who's going? Let's start with the Mid Atlantic. Who's going? Which men are going? Who are your picks? And if Travis isn't in there, you better put him in there.
So in no particular order, like I said, the five favorites for sure there are Ben Smith, Scott Panchik, Justin Madero, Sam Quant, and Travis Mayer. I mean,
Okay,
these guys are very well established. Justin's obviously younger than these other guys. Quant's younger than the other three guys, but they've been around good. If, on paper, those five guys should make it. My prediction is that four of the five guys will make it. And I don't know
And
which one will
do you-
miss it. I don't know, but I know how these competitions go. There's always an upset. There's always a drama. There's always someone who underperforms. It's 1 weekend of competition, and there are some other good guys there, some up and coming guys, some guys that have done well in the past at this kind of format. So I'm calling it. I'm calling it, and then a guy who's maybe a little bit less well known to sneak into the fifth spot.
You think it's Ben Smith? You think this is it? This is going to be his last year, don't you?
I'm super interested to see how he does. He looks amazing. He looks like he's the strongest he's ever been. He's been doing a pretty intensive strength cycle, and it seems to be working. He's done pretty well so far. I don't think he really cares about the quarterfinals, though. I think he's 22nd there in North America, but I think he's focused on this weekend and making it back to the games. I think he'll make it.
So
I think.
You do, and will this be Ben's 11th or 12th games?
Well, I think I could pull it up and check, but I think that this is his 12th. If he makes it, it would be. He got that special invite in 2019. Yeah. So this will be his 12th if he.
Yeah, that's crazy. They did those special invites. Don't get me started on that.
So
Absurd.
he hasn't performed well enough to qualify the last 2 years. Obviously, last year it got cut short, so he might have eventually had a sanctional, but it didn't get to go to any.
Okay, and do you have any predictions for the last chance qualifiers in the men for the Mid Atlantic?
Yeah, so the guys that are just outside those five are Connor Duddy. I mean, he's had 3 top 10 sanctional finishes the last 2 seasons. Jason Hopper's a young up and coming guy. I've got my eye on. Travis Williams is returning to individual competition. Definitely a threat to maybe take, if not the 5th or 4th or 5th spot, to get one of those. Josh Woodhall, who's had 2 second place finishes at some of the smaller sanctionals in the past. You got former team sensation Angelo DeChico coming back to competition. So there's a bunch of guys in the mix here. Adam Klink, Ben Smith's old training partner. Luke Parker, who's currently training with Rich Froning. Mark Jones, who's qualified for the games before. Matt, there are a lot of guys here that could make a.
How old's Marquand? He's been around for a while too.
I bet he's like 28 to 30. I don't have it pulled up here.
Oh, really?
Well, we can find out. Hold on.
I remember I think he was at the Albany regional many years ago.
He's 31.
And I remember. Oh, okay. Well, he's younger than I thought, but still old. And tell me about Travis Williams. You're talking about Travis Williams, the Misfit guy,
Yeah,
the guy who
he's
trains with
been
Misfit.
well, he's not anymore of a problem there. He's now with I think it's called Jumped Ship programming or something like that. Yeah, I mean, he made the games 3 straight years,
Wait,
2015 to
wait a second. You're
17.
telling me he had a problem with Misfit, but the new guys he's with are called Jump Ship. That's
It might be his
amazing.
company. I don't,
Okay, well that would be apropos. That would be awesome.
yeah, maybe he jumped ship. I don't know.
Well, I hope he makes it. He's a good guy. Okay, and do you want to say anything else about the men before we jump over to the women?
No, I mean, look, the America are good. All of the semifinals for the men in North America are deep fields, and there's definitely some guys that I don't know how good they are that are in these fields. You know, there's this guy Zach Watts. He was sixth in Brazil. There's a guy Hal Fisher. He was seventh at the French Throwdown. Norman Woodring, seventh at strength. Top 10 finishes at sanctional events in the past 2 years, so they can perform. So I think there's gonna, it's gonna require guys to have. You're gonna have to have a really good weekend to make it.
Where are the other Panchik brothers?
Oh, let me see here. Saxon is competing at Granite Games in week 2, and Spencer Panchik, man, he got the short end of the stick here. He's in the West Coast Classic in the last weekend, and that men's field is insane. Can you give me 1 minute, please, or just like 10 seconds? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Is that a phone call? Did you get a pizza delivered? What? Sure. I can talk for 10 seconds. Brian's just gotten up from his chair. He's taking his headset off. He can't hear what's going on.
That's fast.
What was that?
I have something in the oven. I just turned it off.
Oh. What are you cooking?
It's not good. I didn't cook how I usually cook tonight because we're doing this.
Yeah, little frozen pizza. Okay.
I was out of I was out of town this weekend and it's bad.
So tell me about the women of the Mid Atlantic. No, sorry.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, Mid Atlantic. Yeah, I mean, Tia's she's done 5 sanctionals. She's won them all, the best sanctionals. She's won the games 4 times in a row. So that's that. Behind her will be, in some order, Haley Adams, Brooke Wells. I have no reservations. Barring an injury, they'll all make the games. Listen, the cool thing is, in the last couple of years, they all competed at Wadapalooza last year. Amanda was 4th, Haley was 5th, Brooke was 6th. They all competed at Rogue that year. Amanda was 7th, Haley was 8th, Brooke was 10th. They all competed at stage 1 of the games last year, and they finished within 4 spots of each other. So these 3 girls are totally different athletes with different skill sets and strengths. But somehow, in 3 of the most prestigious competitions last year, they were finishing back to back to back on the leaderboard. So this is a great opportunity to see which one of them is maybe in a good position for. And ultimately, all of them are trying to chase down Carrie Pierce and take the title of the fittest woman in the United States.
And why didn't Carrie Pierce do better in the quarterfinals? I think that's her choice.
I don't know. I haven't looked too close to see if there was, one that was a struggle for her. A lot of people struggled on the front squat. Yeah, so she was 1st, 5th, and 8th in the CrossFit style workouts, and then she had a 132nd in the rowing wall ball, which is obviously just a bad combination for her relative to her other things, and then 308th in the front squat. So tested her big time.
Okay. And there's no question about her dedication. I mean, she's in it to win it.
I mean, she's for now, yeah. Like, I think that she's at the point of her career where she's making a decision year by year. But if doing it one more year, she's all in. She's moved out to Vegas with her coach. She's training with Bethany and Danielle. They've got a bunch of guys out there. Tola Morikini, Nicholas Bedarte from Argentina. They got a good crew there. They got a, I think that all 3 of those women will do well at the semifinals. But again, the West Coast Classic's gonna be a tough one.
So when you said the men, you said of your 5 picks, you think one of them, the odds are one of them will shit the bed or something will happen or derail them or someone will come up you didn't know. How do you feel about the women? Do you have that same with the women, or are you a little more confident with the women?
So those four I said I feel very confident will make it, and then
Okay.
one that I think's up for grabs. However, after I saw the programming, I felt pretty good about Fee Sagafi's chances to get the fifth spot.
And who's that?
She trains with Travis Scott Panchik, and she has for. Well, I'm not actually sure how long she's been there, but she competed at the games in 2019. She took 25th there. She was second at the Italian throwdown. She was 13th at Rogue
Oh,
2 years
is
ago.
she Italian? Is she Italian?
I mean, she's American,
something.
but her
She's something.
citizenship is American, but she's certainly got some.
Yeah. Tell me her name again.
Her actual name is Firoza Sagafi.
Rosa Sagafi. She sounds like she's married to like a mob boss. Racist.
I don't think she's married. I think maybe she is. She's got a boyfriend, I think.
Sorry, a daughter of a mob boss.
Oh, okay.
So
But
you're feeling more confident with the women's class.
Well, the top four, yes, but I like because there's a lot of I think there's just some favorable
programs. She's an artist. Sorry, a filmmaker artist.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Every time you say her name, I think she's something else. Okay, go on. Sorry.
But there's some women that will be giving her a run for her money for sure, and you know some of these women. Jessica Griffith is competing at the Mid-Atlantic, and Rebecca Voigt is competing. Rebecca's already qualified as a Masters athlete, but she's she qualified 104th in the quarterfinals. I have her ranked in the top 10 for the semifinals because she's a gamer, and this is the classic example of we'll see if it plays out this way, but a live competition setting. She has so much experience. She knows how to manage and navigate that weekend, the time between events, the pressure, the stress, whatever, all the other factors. There's another girl, one of the teenage sensations in the U.S. There's 4 teenagers, well, 3 U.S., 1 girl that are 17 years old that have qualified for semifinals that all have an actual chance to qualify for the games in the elite division this year, which has never been done before. The Mid-Atlantic is one of them. It's Olivia Sulek. I also have her ranked in the top 10. I think she has a chance to get last chance qualify. I would be surprised if she could get into the 5th spot. I mean, I watched Haley Adams compete at the, I guess it was the Atlantic Regional in 2018, and she did very, very well. And she finished 11th. It's just tough. It's just tough. So, and then there's a woman, Christine Kohlenbrander, who usually competes on a team, who's competing there. But look, the women's field just especially in North America, it's not as deep as the men's field, and so the top women are gonna shine and excel, and there's gonna be big gaps. Like Tio probably of the top American women, those 3 girls will probably all be within 30 points, 50-point gap to another group of 4 or 5 women, and another big gap. Like it's gonna be spread out on the women's side because the depth just isn't there.
There's levels to this shit. Becca Voigt, let's say she does qualify for the last chance qualifier. What is she going to do? Is she going to actually try the last chance qualifier, or is she going to rest up and lick her wounds from the semifinals so that she can be her best for the Masters?
I think she'll probably do it. I think that's just kind of how she is. I don't think she, I think she's been pretty outspoken about the fact that she trains, not doing like crazy volume of workout and whatever. She's got it dialed in. I mean, she's been 10 times to the games as an individual. She's podiumed as a Masters athlete as well. She's, she knows what she's doing. She knows how to manage everything when it comes. I think she could probably do that, not have it, crush her. But we'll see. I also think there's a chance she could qualify, straight out of the Mid-Atlantic.
Isn't it also interesting that you have someone as young as Haley Adams, and that her room to grow, just thinking logically, is greater than all the other women, and so because of her age, and so she may have just made leaps and bounds from last year, right? I mean, the difference between a 19-year-old man and a 20-year-old man can be huge. And you
Yeah,
can make those
definitely.
leaps
And
from 19 to 20 to 21 to 22. So she might show up on the scene and just be on a whole nother level, right?
it's definitely possible. I mean, it's not just another year of training with Rich. It's another year of being in that environment. It's another year of working with Chris Hinshaw. So she's already sixth and fourth in the last 2 years at the games. She's 21 years old, and here's the interesting thing: those 17-year-old, they're all stronger than Haley. So Haley also
Wow.
still has room to improve in the thing that she's worst at, which is her strength. If you look at any of her competition performances, anytime a strength event shows up, it's a clear outlier relative to performances in anything else. And last year at Rogue, in one of the most difficult workouts, she beat everyone in the field, including Tia and Kara and Katrin and all of them. So she can win workouts against the best. In depth, she took third place. She was behind Laura Horvath and Gabriela Magala, but those three women were clearly the best three women there. She took fifth at Wadapalooza. She was eighth in Rogue. She's done 5 sanctionals. She's one of the youngest athletes at every one of them, and her worst finish was eighth at Rogue, which is obviously a very strong field.
So her confidence is skyrocketing. So she has a win on Tia.
An event win, yeah.
Yeah,
Fantasy Fitness posted something earlier. Anyone beat Tia? And I said, maybe in one event.
yeah. I mean, that is really amazing that she did that. I mean, that's something else. And she probably hangs her hat on that. I know I would.
There are
Be like,
certain
okay, she's
there are
human.
certain movements that all the people who train at Mayhem always excel at. GHD sit-ups, handstand walking, and high volume toes to bar are three that come to mind. Also maybe pegboards, but rarely tested. And that workout had a ton of toes to bar in it, which he's really good at.
Amazing. So let's talk about the Taurean Pro. That's in Oceania.
Yeah.
What do you got there for the men and women?
Oh man, it's tough. So I've gotten word that James Newberry is actually healthy and training well and looking good. He had some he's training for bobsled. He had some off-season injuries, but he's a very resilient. He bounces back pretty quick. So I think if he's healthy, he'll take one of the top 3 spots. Protege Jay Crouch is probably the favorite out there. I think he can even beat James Newberry. He has beaten him before at the 2020 Australian CrossFit Championship. And then because of the programming, I have Royce Dunn in the top 3. I do a little, when I see the programming, I look at like the top 10 or 15 guys and I put a little plus or minus based on. For him, I had, out of 7 events, I had 1 minus and 4 pluses, which was like the biggest disparity of any of the other guys in the top 10. So I bumped him up from, I had him in the 5th spot, I moved him up to the 2 spot. I might
And
still.
What about those events? What did you see specifically?
Power output. Power output. So one of the main piece of the event is the Echo bike. He's a big dude. The next one is a clean and jerk ladder. He's one of the strongest guys in the field. The next one has some skiing and burpee box jump overs, but the crux of the workout is a max distance sled pull, power. And then the last workout has thrusters. The thruster weight is a little heavier than usual. That won't be an issue for him, and he's actually, for his size, pretty good at gymnastics. Usually in these competitions, it's not so much about how you do on day 1. It's about how you do on days 2 and 3. So I think he might be outside the top 10 even after day 1. There's a reverse triathlon as the first of that. But he'll make his way back up, and if he can hit a couple home runs in events 5, 6, and 7, I think he can make it. But there's a lot of good guys out there. Con Porter, I have him in 4th right now. Baden Brown, I got him in 5th. Brandon Swan, Zeke Grove, all very good competitors that will be one of those spots.
Reverse triathlon, is that what it sounds like? You just do the event.
It's a concept 2 triathlon. So they have or no, it's not. They have a 5K run, 7K bike, 2K row. So there's no swimming, but the row replaces swimming. And the row is the smallest, the shortest time domain, and it's at the end of the workout, where usually the shortest time domain of a triathlon is the swim at the start of the event.
How long is the row?
2K. At the end of that, it's a
Wow.
48-minute time. He's very, very good at aerobic stuff. Just tested this out and finished in around 42 minutes. I've charted it out for myself. I think if I was able to do the 48 minutes, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, that's that is the pain cave right there. That last 2K row is going to be something else because intellectually they can all get their heads wrapped around that, no problem. But to throw it there at the end, wow.
And then the very next event
is the running outside or inside? Is it on one of the machines or is it outside?
I think it's on the machines. I'm not certain of that, but I think so.
Okay, and what were
Very
you
next event features it's a sprint event. It's 21 ring muscle ups, 21 squat snatches, and your legs are going to be feeling pretty bad after that 2K row at the end of that triathlon.
Same day?
Same day.
Ouch. So that's going to be a good one to watch.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we have the first.
You too.
What
Thursday
do you
evening.
mean for me just to sit at home and watch?
It'll be evening time when those events are happening for you because it's 17 hours ahead of you in Australia.
Oh, okay. So you said
So when
Thursday evening.
I think 4 p.m. maybe is the time that the first competition will start for you. 4 p.m. on Thursday. There'll be 9 a.m. on Friday.
Well, I think that's good, Brian. And then we'll just circle back on Monday or Tuesday. And
About the girls in Australia.
Oh, we didn't talk about them? I just see we're at 57 minutes and I'm like, all right, I got to go. Yeah, I do care about the women in Australia, of course. The great Cara Webb is there, right? Cara Saunders.
Cara Saunders should be the runaway winner. I like Madeline Sturt as kind of the solid second pick. And then I think it's very difficult to pick a third woman here. There's a young competitor out there named Ellie Turner. There's two times games champions, Courtney Haley and Justin Beath. There's Alethea.
Wait. There's what? Games champion?
Sorry, games qualifiers, not champions.
Okay, good. I was like, whoa, damn.
Thank you.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so there's Courtney Haley, Justine Beath, Jessica Coughlin, Alethea Boone. Most people will know them. All games veterans. I think that's what I meant to say. But then there's this woman, Laura Clifton, who's a very strong individual who I thought was going to be able to get a spot for the same reasons as Royce Dunn, but workout number 7, the chest to bar pull-ups and thrusters, which is a kryptonite for her. So I had her ranked 3rd until I saw that workout, but I don't think I can put her in the 3rd spot anymore because you know this from regionals. If you don't do well in the last workout and you're right on a bubble spot, you're not going to make it.
You're toast.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big weekend.
Yeah, and I will put out my rankings 1 through 20 for the individuals every week for every one of the semifinals on my Instagram.
And when will that go up?
I'll put them out like 1 or 2 days before the competition.
Okay, cool. And your Instagram is Brian, Brian CrossFit. No, sorry.
Brian Friend CrossFit.
Your Instagram is at BrianFriend CrossFit. Brian Friend CrossFit.
Mm-hmm. I'll probably put the top 5 teams that I think will make it also. There's no last chance qualifier for the teams, and it's difficult to know who's on the teams.
That's why you're never going to get to 2,000 followers, because you do stuff like that, because you're courteous and put out team information. Tell me, am I totally wrong about the teams? Does anyone care about the teams besides the people who are on the teams? I mean, it is nice this year. It is nice this year that you have to all belong to the same affiliate. I mean, that is awesome. I much rather like that format. I think it's better.
It's good.
Better for the sport.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's the difficulty with the team stuff is that no one knows how to follow it. Just like how you're struggling to see what's going on with the events, there's limited information. Now they have the 6 athletes that are competing, up to 6 athletes, I should say, that are competing listed on their profile page. But if you go to the game site and search Pro and click on teams, you can't see any athletes. You just see the team names. If you click on each team individually and then wait for it to load, which it takes a second, and then scroll down to the bottom, you can see that 4, 5, or 6 athletes that they've listed, but you don't know which of those 4, 5, or 6 athletes. If there's only 4, you know who's competing. But if there's 6, you don't actually know who they're showing up with the competition floor. There's a team from Rob Forte's gym. He's listed on the roster. I don't think he's competing, but there's no way of confirming the fact that he said he's not competing. But I think the problem is that CrossFit doesn't know either, because up until the day of registration to say these are the 4 competing and these are the 2 alternates. But from an analyst perspective, that makes it pretty impossible. Forte's on that team. I like the team a lot more than if either of these other guys that I don't know are on the team, right? So it's difficult, and that's why there's been little team. But the problem there is that you're not going to generate that much interest because you're not talking about it, because there's nothing to talk about because you don't know who's competing.
So it puts a little bit of a damper on the hype train, the build up to the event.
Yeah, I mean, I work for the Morning Talk. We talk about what we're going to write about all the time, and we're like, well, teams, I mean, we can, but it's limited because we don't have all the information. But CrossFit doesn't have all the information either.
To end on this note, Australia is notorious for being very supportive of one another. The athletes, they got their Aussie, Aussie, Aussie chant, and they don't care who wins because as long as it's an Australian. And I've actually bought that for a long time. But I think it would be very, very sweet for Cara Saunders to beat Tia. I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I'm saying that I think Cara, I think she wants to win the games, and I think she wants to beat Tia. I bet you she's tired about hearing that Tia's unbeatable.
Yeah, and Cara's, I think she's in a super good place in her life right now, but she's had a bit of an unfortunate career relative to what it could have been. She was the fittest woman on earth in 2014, and a little stinger in her neck prevented her from claiming the title on the last day of competition. 2017, the closest race in the or women's side, she's on the wrong side of it by 2 points. So she's potentially 2-time fittest woman on earth that has no fittest woman on earth titles. And rival happens to also be from her country that is a very proud country where she's, no matter how good she has been, she's just even if it's, partial shadow or something like that.
Do they have a beef? Are they friends? Do they train together?
I don't really train together. If they competed on the Invitational together or not, it's been so many years since competition's been around, but I think there were some times that there was some animosity between them, or at least that was projected that way by some of the media coverage. Really, I don't actually know. I've actually had very little interaction with either of them personally.
If there's any friction there. All right, Brian. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.